The thunder cracked overhead like the devil's own whip as Katherine Garrett clutched her infant daughter tighter to her chest, the last vestige of the life she once had. Rain pounded mercilessly against the weathered walls of her isolated cabin nestled in the rolling hills of Montana Territory, 1875. She hadn't expected visitors on such a night, certainly not the kind that came with bandanas pulled high over their faces and revolvers drawn. "Please," Catherine begged, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "Take whatever you want, but leave us be." The tallest of the three men stepped forward, water streaming from his black duster. "Reckon we heard tell of James Garrett's widow living out here all alone with his baby. Word is he left something valuable behind." Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs. 6 months a widow, and still her late husband's misdeeds followed her. "There's nothing here. James took all his secrets to the grave." "That so?" The outlaw's eyes narrowed to slits. "Boys, search the place. Every floorboard, every hiding spot." As the men ransacked her modest home, overturning furniture and slashing open her feather mattress, Catherine inched toward the door, her 6-month-old Emma whimpering against her breast. "Found nothing, boss," one of the men called after tearing apart the last cabinet. The leader turned his cold stare back to Catherine. "Where is it, madam?" "The map. The gold. Whatever James hid." "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her fear. The outlaw's patience had worn thin. In 2 quick strides, he crossed the room and wrenched Emma from Catherine's arms. "No!" Catherine lunged forward, but the second man caught her roughly. "You've got until tomorrow night to remember where your husband's treasure is," the leader said, cradling the now screaming infant with surprising gentleness. "Meet us at Devil's Canyon with what we want, or you won't see your little one again." "Please," Catherine sobbed, struggling against her captor. "She's just a baby. She needs me." "Should have thought about that before you decided to play dumb." The leader nodded to his men. "Let's ride." As quickly as they'd come, the outlaws disappeared into the stormy night, taking her precious Emma with them. Catherine collapsed to the floor, her screams of anguish drowned by the raging tempest outside. Morning brought little relief. The storm had passed, but Catherine's nightmare had only begun. With trembling hands, she gathered what meager possessions she could carry and headed for the nearest town, White Ridge, a 3-hour ride on her aging mare. White Ridge wasn't much more than a dusty main street with a general store, saloon, and sheriff's office. Catherine tied her horse outside the latter and burst through the door, nearly collapsing with exhaustion. Sheriff Lloyd Barnes looked up from his desk, surprise evident in his weathered face. "Mrs. Garrett? What brings you to town in such a state?" "They took her," Catherine gasped, gripping the edge of his desk for support. "They took my Emma." Barnes listened gravely as Catherine recounted the previous night's events, his expression darkening with each word. "Devil's Canyon, you say?" The sheriff shook his head. "That'd be the Sanders gang. Been causing trouble across 3 territories." He scratched his graying beard. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Garrett, but I can't help you. I've got no deputies, and Devil's Canyon is beyond my jurisdiction." "But my baby—" "Do you have what they're looking for?" Barnes interrupted. Catherine shook her head helplessly. "James never told me about any treasure or map. He was a prospector who never found his fortune. If he had something valuable, I know nothing of it." Barnes sighed heavily. "Then I'm even more sorry. Those men don't take kindly to being disappointed." Desperation clawed at Catherine's chest as she stumbled out of the sheriff's office. The midday sun beat down mercilessly, a stark contrast to the previous night's tempest. She tied her bag more securely to her saddle, unsure where to turn next. "Couldn't help but overhear your predicament, madam." Catherine turned to find a tall man leaning against the hitching post beside her horse. His face was partially shadowed by a worn Stetson, but she could make out a strong jawline dusted with stubble. His clothes were trail-worn but neat denim pants, a faded blue shirt, leather vest, and a gun belt that had seen its share of use. "Forgive my eavesdropping," he continued, straightening up. "Name's Adam Mitchell. I track people for a living." Katherine regarded him warily. "I have no money to hire a bounty hunter, Mr. Mitchell." "Not asking for any." He adjusted his hat, revealing eyes the color of a summer sky. "Let's just say I've had some unpleasant dealings with the Sanders gang myself. Been trailing them for different reasons." Hope flickered within Katherine for the first time since Emma had been taken. "You know where they might have gone?" Adam nodded. "I've got a fair idea. Their main hideout's beyond Devil's Canyon, but they've got a spot closer they might use with a baby in tow." Katherine's breath caught. "Then you'll help me?" "I will." Adam's expression grew serious. "But you should know, these men are dangerous. This won't be easy." "I don't care," Katherine said firmly. "She's my daughter." "Then I'll bring them both back tonight," Adam promised, his voice calm but determined. "You have my word." Katherine studied him carefully. In her year on the frontier after moving west with James, she'd learned to be cautious around strangers, especially men making promises. But there was something in Adam Mitchell's steady gaze that compelled her to trust him. "Why would you risk your life for a woman and child you don't know?" A shadow passed over Adam's features. "Let's just say I understand what it means to lose family to men like these." He nodded toward the general store. "Get yourself some supplies. We've got hard riding ahead of us." An hour later, they were on the trail, Katherine on her mare, and Adam astride a powerful black gelding. He set a punishing pace, clearly familiar with the rugged terrain that stretched before them. "Sanders' gang is led by 3 brothers," Adam explained as they rode. "Ezra's the oldest, meanest too. Then there's Levi and Caleb. They usually keep 2 or 3 other outlaws with them, depending on what they're planning." "How do you know so much about them?" Katherine asked. Adam's jaw tightened. "They raided a stagecoach I was guarding 2 years back. Killed everyone but me." He paused. "I was a lawman then, out of Colorado territory. And now? Now I hunt men like them. Make sure they face justice." He glanced sideways at her. "Your husband, if you don't mind me asking, was he mixed up with these outlaws?" Katherine shook her head. "James was many things: stubborn, reckless, too fond of drink toward the end, but he wasn't an outlaw. He came out west chasing stories of gold strikes. When they didn't pan out, he took odd jobs, drifted from one camp to another." She sighed. "Pneumonia took him last winter. Whatever these men think he had, I've never seen it." Adam nodded thoughtfully. "Sanders' gang wouldn't go after something unless they were mighty convinced it existed. Ezra's greedy, but he's not one to waste time on wild chases." As the sun began its descent, they crested a ridge overlooking a narrow valley. Adam raised a hand for Katherine to halt, then dismounted and gestured for her to do the same. "We'll leave the horses here," he whispered. "Their camp should be just beyond those cottonwoods." Katherine's heart pounded as she tied her mare to a scraggly pine. "What's the plan?" "Wait until dark. I'll scout ahead, see what we're dealing with." Adam checked his revolver. "Once night falls, I'll create a distraction. You stay hidden until I signal you, then find Emma while they're occupied." "And if something goes wrong?" Adam's expression was grim. "There's a trading post about 10 miles east of here. Man named Josiah runs it. If I don't come back, go there. Tell him Adam sent you. He'll help you reach the territorial marshal." Katherine nodded, her mouth dry with fear. They settled into a sheltered spot behind some boulders to wait out the remaining daylight. As shadows lengthened across the valley, Katherine found herself studying Adam's profile: the straight nose, firm mouth, the small scar that interrupted his right eyebrow. "How did you come to be a bounty hunter?" she asked softly. Adam kept his eyes on the valley below. "After the stagecoach massacre, I spent 6 months in a mission hospital. By the time I recovered, my badge had been given to someone else." His shoulders lifted in a small shrug. Tracking is what I know. Seemed fitting to use those skills. And does it bring you peace? Hunting these men? A sad smile touched his lips. Peace is for those with cleaner hands than mine, Mrs. Garrett. Katherine, she corrected gently. If you're risking your life for my daughter, I think we're beyond formalities. He nodded. Katherine, then. As dusk deepened into night, Adam checked his weapons one final time. Wait for my signal 3 short whistles. If you hear shooting but no signal within 5 minutes, take the horses and ride east. Before Katherine could respond, he melted into the darkness like a shadow. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness as she strained to catch any sound from the camp below. Then, suddenly, a bright flash illuminated the night sky, followed by a thunderous boom that echoed through the valley. Shouts erupted from the direction of the camp. A second explosion, smaller than the first, sent men scrambling in confusion. Katherine counted 3 figures rushing toward the source of the commotion, then a fourth. 3 short whistles pierced the chaos. Katherine moved quickly, keeping low as she made her way down the slope toward the cluster of cottonwoods. The Outlaws' camp came into view, 3 small tents surrounding a fire pit, horses tethered nearby. No sign of Emma or the remaining outlaw. A third explosion drew more shouts from the direction the men had run. Katherine used the cover of noise to move closer, her eyes desperately scanning the camp. Then she heard it, a baby's fretful cry coming from the largest tent. Katherine dashed toward the sound, her heart in her throat. She pushed aside the tent flap to find Emma lying in a makeshift cradle of blankets, her tiny fists waving in the air. Emma! Oh, my sweet girl! Katherine whispered, scooping up her daughter and pressing her close. Emma's cries subsided to whimpers as she recognized her mother's scent and voice. Well, ain't this touching? Katherine froze at the drawling voice behind her. Slowly, she turned to find a wiry man with a patchy beard pointing a revolver at her chest. Figured someone might come for the little one, he said with a yellow-toothed grin. Ezra'll be mighty pleased I caught James Garrett's wife. Now where's your friend with the fancy explosives? Katherine backed away, shielding Emma with her body. I came alone. The outlaw snorted. Like hell you did. He gestured with his gun. Outside, now. With no choice, Katherine stepped out of the tent, her mind racing. The sounds of pursuit had faded, leaving an eerie quiet broken only by the crackling campfire. Ezra, the outlaw called. Got something here you'll want to see. Silence answered him. He frowned, casting nervous glances into the surrounding darkness. Ezra! Levi! Anybody! They can't hear you, came Adam's voice from the shadows. Drop the gun! The outlaw spun, firing wildly in the direction of the voice. Katherine dropped to her knees, curling protectively around Emma. A single shot rang out in response, and the outlaw crumpled to the ground with a grunt. Adam materialized from the darkness, his revolver still raised. Are you hurt? Katherine shook her head, rising unsteadily to her feet. Emma? She looks fine. Adam quickly checked the fallen outlaw, then holstered his weapon. We need to move. I only managed to lead 3 of them away. Once they realize it's a diversion, they'll be back. What did you use for those explosions? Katherine asked, as they hurried back toward the ridge where they'd left the horses. Coal oil and blasting powder. Borrowed it from their own supplies. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. They won't be happy about that. They reached the horses and mounted quickly, Adam helping Katherine secure Emma safely against her chest with a makeshift sling fashioned from a spare shirt. They rode hard through the night, taking a different route than the one they'd used to approach the camp. Dawn found them many miles away, descending into a hidden ravine where a small stream provided water. Adam insisted they rest briefly, both for the horses' sake and for Emma, who needed feeding and changing. They'll be after us, Adam warned as Katherine tended to her daughter. Sanders brothers don't take kindly to being outsmarted. How far to the nearest town? 2 days' ride to anywhere with a proper sheriff. Adam filled their canteens from the stream. But I know a place closer. Old Line Shack about half a day from here. We can rest there, then push on tomorrow. Katherine nodded, exhaustion evident in her face despite her determination. They continued their journey after a short rest, Adam setting a pace that balanced speed with endurance for their mounts. By mid-afternoon, they reached the line shack, a crude but solid structure built into the side of a hill, nearly invisible until they were almost upon it. Inside was sparse but serviceable. A small stove, rough-hewn table and chairs, a narrow bed in one corner, and shelves stocked with basic provisions. Not much, Adam apologized, but it's defensible and hard to find unless you know it's here. It's perfect, Katherine assured him, settling Emma on the bed. The infant, remarkably resilient, had fussed little during their long ride. Now she gurgled happily, seemingly relieved to be in a quieter environment. Adam busied himself checking the perimeter while Katherine prepared a simple meal from the supplies they'd brought and what was available in the cabin. As they ate, the events of the past 36 hours began to catch up with her, and she found herself fighting to keep her eyes open. "Get some rest," Adam urged. "I'll keep watch." "You need sleep too," Katherine protested. "I'll wake you in a few hours," he promised. "Been on the trail longer than you have." "I'm used to it." Too tired to argue, Katherine curled up beside Emma on the narrow bed, one hand resting protectively on her daughter's small chest. Despite her exhaustion, she watched Adam through half-closed eyes as he checked his weapons and moved to sit by the single window, his profile outlined against the fading light. "Thank you," she murmured, sleep already pulling at her, "for bringing her back to me." Adam's expression softened as he glanced at mother and child. "Get some sleep, Katherine." When Katherine woke, night had fully fallen. Emma was still sleeping peacefully beside her, but Adam was no longer at his post by the window. Alarmed, she sat up quickly, only to find him stoking the small stove, a pot of coffee brewing atop it. "Sorry," he said quietly, noticing her startled expression. "Didn't mean to worry you. Thought you might want something warm when you woke." Katherine brushed her tangled hair from her face, embarrassed by how frightened she'd been at his momentary absence. "How long was I asleep?" "About 4 hours. You needed it." He poured coffee into a tin cup and brought it to her. "The little one's been sleeping like an angel." Katherine accepted the cup gratefully, breathing in the strong aroma. "She's always been a good sleeper, thankfully." She glanced up at Adam, noting the fatigue lines around his eyes. "Your turn now. I'll keep watch." Adam hesitated, then nodded. "Wake me at first light or sooner if you hear anything unusual." He stretched out on a bedroll near the door, his revolver within easy reach. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into the rhythm of sleep. Katherine moved to the window, cradling her coffee as she gazed out at the star-filled sky. The events of the past 2 days had happened so quickly she'd hardly had time to process them. Now, in the quiet of the cabin with Emma safe beside her, the full weight of their situation settled upon her. James was gone, their home likely ransacked beyond repair, and dangerous men were hunting them for something she didn't possess. And then there was Adam Mitchell, a stranger who had risked his life to save her child, who continued to protect them with a quiet competence that both reassured and intrigued her. Katherine found herself watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, wondering about the man beneath the hard exterior. She was still at the window when Emma began to stir. Katherine quickly moved to attend to her daughter, hoping to quiet her before she woke Adam. To her surprise, he was already sitting up, instantly alert. "Everything all right?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. "Just Emma waking up hungry," Katherine assured him. "Go back to sleep. It's not yet dawn." Instead, Adam rose and moved to the stove, adding wood to build up the heat. Might as well stay up. We should get moving early anyway. As Katherine fed Emma, Adam prepared a simple breakfast of hardtack softened in coffee and dried beef. They ate in companionable silence as the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky. "Where will we go?" Katherine finally asked. "I can't return to my cabin, not with those men still looking for us." Adam considered her question carefully. "Nearest marshal's office is in Copper Creek, about 3 days' ride from here. Once we report what happened, you'll be under official protection until the Sanders gang is caught." "And after that?" The question hung heavy in the air between them. Adam busied himself packing their meager supplies. "Do you have family somewhere? Anyone who could take you in?" Katherine shook her head. "My parents died before I met James. I have a cousin in St. Louis, but we haven't spoken in years." She wrapped Emma more securely in her blanket. The cabin was all we had. A muscle worked in Adam's jaw. "We'll figure something out. First priority is getting you and Emma somewhere safe." They set out as the sun cleared the horizon, riding at a steady pace through increasingly rugged terrain. Adam led them along game trails and dry creek beds, clearly choosing a route that would be difficult to track. By midday, they'd reached a high plateau that offered a clear view of the country behind them. Adam dismounted, pulling out a small brass spyglass to scan their back trail. "See anything?" Katherine asked, anxiety edging her voice. "Dust cloud, about 5 miles back." Adam's expression was grim as he collapsed the spyglass. "Could be Sanders and his men, could be regular travelers. Can't take chances either way." They pushed on with renewed urgency, Adam setting a faster pace that had them both scanning the horizon for pursuit. Late afternoon brought them to a narrow canyon that wound between towering sandstone cliffs. "We'll follow this through," Adam decided. "It's slower going, but harder to track us here." The canyon twisted and turned, occasionally narrowing until they had to ride single file. As the shadows lengthened, Katherine noticed Adam growing increasingly tense, his hand often dropping to rest on his revolver. "Something's wrong," she finally said. Adam reined in his gelding, signaling for her to do the same. "This canyon's too quiet. No birds, no small game." He scanned the cliff tops. Perfect place for an ambush. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a rifle shot echoed through the canyon. The bullet kicked up dirt near Adam's horse, causing the animal to rear in alarm. "Ride!" Adam shouted, drawing his revolver and firing 3 rapid shots toward the top of the cliff. Katherine urged her mare forward, clutching Emma tightly with one arm while the other gripped the reins. More shots rang out behind them, followed by the thunder of pursuing hoofbeats. The canyon widened ahead, opening into a broader valley. They burst out of the narrow passage at full gallop, but Katherine's heart sank as she saw what awaited them: 2 riders blocking their path, guns drawn. Adam veered sharply left, gesturing for Katherine to follow. They raced toward a dense stand of pine trees that climbed the valley wall. Behind them, their pursuers shouted and fired, bullets whizzing past uncomfortably close. "Through there!" Adam pointed to a barely visible trail leading into the trees. They plunged into the forest, branches whipping past as they followed the winding path upward. The gunfire faded as the trees thickened around them. After several tense minutes of hard riding, Adam signaled for Katherine to slow. "We need to split up," he said, his breathing ragged. "They're after what they think your husband left behind. If we separate, they'll follow me. Giving you time to reach Copper Creek." "No," Katherine protested. "I won't leave you to face them alone." "It's not about me," Adam insisted. "It's about getting Emma to safety." Emma, who had been remarkably quiet during their frantic flight, chose that moment to let out a frightened wail. The sound echoed among the trees, and both adults froze, listening for any reaction from their pursuers. Distant shouts confirmed their worst fears: the outlaws had heard the baby's cry and were changing direction. Too late for splitting up now, Adam muttered. He scanned their surroundings, then pointed to a rocky outcropping above. Up there, defensible position with a good view of the approach. They dismounted, securing the horses in a sheltered hollow before climbing to the outcropping. Adam helped Katherine find cover behind a large boulder, then positioned himself where he could see the trail they'd used. 5 men, he reported grimly. Ezra Sanders and what's left of his gang. They're spreading out to search. Katherine hugged Emma close, trying to quiet her frightened whimpers. I'm sorry, she whispered to Adam. If I hadn't come to White Ridge. Don't, Adam cut her off. None of this is your fault. It's men like Sanders who choose violence and greed. His eyes softened as they rested on Emma's tiny face. Besides, some things are worth fighting for. The tenderness in his voice made Katherine's heart stutter. For a brief moment, their eyes met in silent understanding before Adam turned his attention back to the approaching danger. When the shooting starts, stay down, he instructed. If things go badly, there's a trail behind us that leads over the ridge. Follow it down to the valley beyond, then east to Copper Creek. Katherine nodded, though they both knew her chances of escaping with Emma alone were slim. She reached out impulsively, touching Adam's arm. Be careful. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Always am, madam. The first outlaw appeared on the trail below, moving cautiously with rifle raised. Adam waited, motionless as stone, until the man was fully exposed before taking his shot. The outlaw fell without a sound. Shouts erupted from the forest as the remaining outlaws realized they'd found their quarry. Bullets peppered the rocks around them as Adam returned fire methodically, making each shot count. 3 left, he reported during a momentary lull. They're trying to circle around behind us. Katherine clutched her own small derringer, a gift from James that she'd rarely used but always carried. I can shoot if I have to. Adam nodded grimly. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The gunfire resumed, more intense than before. Adam hissed as a bullet grazed his arm but continued returning fire. Another outlaw fell to his accurate shooting, but the remaining 2 had worked their way to better positions, pinning them down with crossfire. Mrs. Garrett, a voice called from below. We just want what your husband stole. Give it to us and you can walk away. I don't have anything, Katherine shouted back. James didn't leave me any treasure or map. A harsh laugh answered her. Then maybe we'll just take the little one instead. Raise her as our own. Adam's face hardened at the threat. Without warning, he rolled to a new position and fired 3 rapid shots. A cry of pain suggested at least one had found its mark. 1 down, 1 to go, Adam whispered, ejecting spent cartridges and reloading quickly. The forest fell silent except for Emma's frightened whimpers. Minutes stretched like hours as they waited for the final outlaw to make his move. Behind you! Katherine suddenly screamed, raising her derringer as a shadow materialized from the rocks above them. Ezra Sanders loomed over them, his face contorted with rage and a bleeding wound in his side. Before either could react, he kicked the gun from Katherine's hand and seized Emma from her grasp. No! Katherine lunged for her daughter, but Sanders knocked her back with brutal force. Adam whirled, his revolver aimed at Sanders's heart, but he couldn't fire with the outlaw holding Emma as a shield. Drop it, Sanders growled, pressing his own gun to the infant's head. Or the little one dies right now. Adam's jaw clenched, but he slowly lowered his weapon. Kick it away, Sanders ordered. When Adam complied, the outlaw's thin lips curved in a triumphant smile. Now, Mrs. Garrett, for the last time, where is your husband's map? I've told you, Katherine pleaded, her eyes fixed on Emma's terrified face. I don't know about any map. James never showed me anything like that. Sanders's face darkened. Wrong answer. He cocked his pistol, the click unnaturally loud in the tense silence. Wait, Adam interrupted. I know where it is. Sanders' attention shifted. Is that so, lawman? Ex-lawman, Adam corrected. And yes, James Garrett showed me the map before he died. I can take you to where he hid the gold. Katherine stared at Adam in confusion, but he avoided her gaze. Sanders considered this, suspicion warring with greed in his eyes. Why would he show you? Because I was tracking him for claim jumping in Colorado, Adam lied smoothly. We came to an arrangement. He'd give me a share if I looked the other way. You expect me to believe that? Sanders sneered. Adam shrugged. Believe what you want. But I'm your only chance of finding that gold now. A tense moment passed as Sanders weighed his options. Finally, he nodded. All right, you'll take me to this gold. He gestured with his gun. But the woman and child come too. Insurance, you might say. Fine, Adam agreed. But the baby stays with her mother. You want cooperation? That's my condition. Sanders considered this, then roughly thrust Emma back into Katherine's arms. Try anything, either of you, and I'll kill you all. Understood? They both nodded, Katherine clutching Emma tightly as they were marched down to where the horses waited. Sanders forced them to ride together on Katherine's mare, while he took Adam's gelding, keeping his gun trained on them as they rode. Where to, lawman? Sanders demanded once they reached the valley floor. North, Adam replied without hesitation. About half a day's ride. There's a box canyon with a cave system. Gold's hidden in one of the deeper chambers. They rode in tense silence as the afternoon waned. Katherine kept darting questioning glances at Adam, who maintained his stoic facade. Only once, when Sanders was momentarily distracted navigating a difficult stretch of trail, did Adam meet her eyes and give an almost imperceptible nod that somehow reassured her he had a plan. As dusk approached, they reached a narrow ravine leading to a box canyon just as Adam had described. Sheer rock walls rose on three sides, with the fourth providing the only entrance and exit. This is it, Adam announced, reining in. The cave entrance is along the eastern wall. Sanders studied the canyon suspiciously. You go first. Show me this entrance. They dismounted, Sanders keeping his gun trained on Katherine and Emma while Adam led the way. About halfway along the eastern wall, partially hidden by brush and fallen rocks, was a dark opening large enough for a man to enter. That's it, Adam confirmed. Cave goes back about 50 yards, then branches. Gold's in the left passage, hidden under a flat rock marked with a cross. After you, Sanders gestured with his gun. Adam hesitated. We'll need a light. Sanders pulled a small lantern from his saddlebag. Got one right here. Now move. Adam took the lantern and lit it, casting eerie shadows as they entered the cave. Katherine followed, clutching Emma close and trying to calm her frightened whimpers. The main passage was damp and narrow, widening slightly as they moved deeper. True to Adam's description, they soon reached a fork where the cave branched into two passages. Left one, Adam confirmed, leading the way. The passage grew narrower, forcing them to walk single file. Adam first with the lantern, then Katherine with Emma, and Sanders bringing up the rear, his gun constantly trained on them. How much further? Sanders demanded after several minutes of walking. Not far, Adam assured him, just around this bend. The passage turned sharply, then opened into a small chamber with a pool of water at its center. Adam raised the lantern, illuminating the space. Where's the marked rock? Sanders demanded, looking around suspiciously. Right there. Adam pointed to a flat stone near the pool. Under that one. Sanders hesitated, clearly suspicious of being lured into a trap. You move it, he ordered. Adam handed the lantern to Katherine, then moved to the stone. With a grunt of effort, he lifted the heavy rock and set it aside, revealing nothing. Sanders's face contorted with rage. You lying bastard! Wait, Adam said calmly, kneeling to examine the ground. It should be here. I've had enough of this. Sanders raised his gun, aiming at Adam's head. What happened next unfolded in a blur. Adam suddenly flung a handful of sand from the cave floor into Sanders's face. The outlaw fired blindly, the shot going wild as Adam tackled him. The two men crashed into the shallow pool, fighting for control of the gun. Katherine backed away, shielding Emma from the violent struggle. The lantern cast chaotic shadows as the men grappled in the knee-deep water. A shot rang out, the sound deafening in the confined space. Then silence. For a terrible moment, Katherine couldn't tell who had been hit. Then Adam rose slowly from the water, Sanders's gun in his hand. The outlaw lay motionless, face down in the crimson-tinged pool. "Are you hurt?" Katherine asked anxiously, rushing to Adam's side. He shook his head, breathing heavily. "No, but we need to leave. Now." They made their way quickly back through the cave, emerging into the canyon where twilight was rapidly fading to night. Without discussion, they mounted their horses and rode hard away from the canyon, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the grim scene behind them. They rode until the horses could go no further, finally stopping in a sheltered hollow near a small stream. Adam built a small, smokeless fire while Katherine tended to Emma, who had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep. "There never was any gold, was there?" Katherine asked when they had settled by the fire. Adam shook his head. "No. I suspected as much. Men like Sanders build their plans on rumors and greed. Your husband probably never had anything they wanted. But how did you know about the cave?" "I didn't," Adam admitted. "But I've ridden these hills enough to know the likely places. I needed somewhere I could control the situation, get the advantage." Katherine studied him across the fire, seeing beyond the hard exterior for the first time. "You risked your life on a guess, for a woman and child you barely know." Adam met her gaze steadily. "Some things are worth the risk." Something shifted between them in that moment, an unspoken understanding, a connection forged in survival and shared purpose. Katherine reached across the space between them, taking his hand in hers. "Thank you," she said softly, "for bringing us both back, like you promised." Adam's fingers tightened around hers. "I always keep my promises. Katherine." They reached Copper Creek 2 days later without further incident. The territorial marshal received their report with grave concern, immediately dispatching riders to recover Sanders's body and search for any remaining members of his gang. Adam's reputation as an ex-lawman lent weight to their account, and the marshal assured them they would be under his protection until the situation was fully resolved. The town's small hotel provided Katherine and Emma with their first proper accommodation since the ordeal began. After a real meal and a hot bath, Katherine felt human again, though the future still loomed uncertain before her. A knock at her door that evening revealed Adam, similarly refreshed, though the hard lines of his face remained. "Marshall's men returned," he reported. "Found Sanders where we left him. No sign of any other gang members in the area." "That's good news," Katherine said, inviting him in. Emma was sleeping peacefully in a makeshift crib the hotel proprietor's wife had provided. Adam nodded, but remained standing awkwardly just inside the door. "I've been thinking about your situation." Katherine braced herself. This was goodbye then. The adventure over, their paths diverging as suddenly as they had crossed. "My family has a small ranch about 2 days' ride from here," Adam continued, surprising her. "Nothing fancy, but there's a good house my father built. I haven't been back in almost 3 years, not since I took to the trail after the stagecoach massacre." Katherine waited, hardly daring to hope she understood what he was suggesting. "It would be a safe place for you and Emma," Adam said carefully. "At least until you decide what you want to do next. The nearest neighbor is 5 miles away, but there's a small town within riding distance." "You're offering us your home?" Katherine asked softly. Adam shifted uncomfortably. "It's sitting empty. Seems a waste when you need a place." He hesitated. "I was thinking I might stay on too, for a while at least. Land needs tending. House probably needs repairs. Katherine studied him, seeing beyond his gruff exterior to the man beneath a man who'd risked his life for her daughter, who'd shown kindness and integrity at every turn. I think, she said carefully, that might be exactly what Emma and I need right now. Relief softened Adam's features. It's settled then. We can leave when you feel rested enough. 2 days later, they set out for the Mitchell Ranch. The journey was peaceful, a welcome change from their previous desperate flight. Adam seemed to relax more with each mile, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing brief stories from his youth. They crested a final hill late in the afternoon of the second day to find a beautiful valley spread before them. A modest but well-built house stood near a clear stream, surrounded by green pastures and backed by pine-covered hills. "It's beautiful," Katherine breathed. "Home," Adam said simply, a mixture of emotion in the single word. The house was dusty but sound, needing only cleaning and minor repairs to be comfortable again. They worked together over the next days and weeks to bring it back to life, Adam mending fences and outbuildings, Katherine making the house a home once more. Neighboring ranchers, hearing of Adam's return, rode over to welcome him back. They embraced Katherine and Emma without question, accepting the story that she was a widow Adam had met in his travels. The small community folded them into its circle with the easy acceptance of frontier people who understood the value of neighbors. Summer faded into autumn, and with it, the temporary nature of their arrangement became increasingly permanent. Adam purchased a small herd of cattle and several horses, committing himself to ranching again. Katherine planted a garden, put up preserves, and transformed the house with small touches that made it truly theirs. They developed a comfortable routine, working side by side during the day, sharing quiet evenings by the fire. Emma flourished, growing stronger and more curious each day. She took her first steps holding on to Adam's fingers, a moment that brought unexpected tears to his eyes. One crisp October evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the valley in gold and crimson, Adam finally gave voice to what had been building between them. "I never expected to find this again," he said quietly. "A home. Purpose." He glanced at Katherine. "Family." Katherine's heart quickened. "Is that what we are? A family?" Adam turned to face her fully. "I'd like us to be. Officially. If you would consider it." "Are you asking me to marry you, Adam Mitchell?" Katherine asked, a smile playing at her lips. "Not very well, it seems," he admitted with a self-deprecating chuckle. He took her hand in his calloused one. "Katherine Garrett, I love you. I love Emma as if she were my own. I want to be a husband to you, a father to her. If you'll have me." Katherine's eyes filled with tears as she squeezed his hand. "We would be honored, both of us." They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in the nearby town, surrounded by their new neighbors and friends. The territorial marshal, who had become a friend during the investigation into the Sanders gang, rode 3 days to attend, bringing news that the remaining gang members had been captured. "Your testimony put them away," he told Adam after the ceremony. "You can finally close that chapter." Adam glanced at Katherine, who was showing Emma to one of the neighbor women. "Already have, Marshal. Already have." Winter came to the valley, bringing snow that transformed the landscape into a pristine wonderland. The Mitchell ranch house stood warm and bright against the white backdrop, smoke curling from its chimney, lamplight glowing in its windows. Inside, Adam sat by the fire, his expression one of contentment as he watched Katherine rock Emma to sleep. The memory of that stormy night and the desperate rescue that followed seemed almost like a dream now, set against the peaceful reality they had built together. "She's asleep," Katherine whispered, carefully rising with the sleeping toddler in her arms. Adam stood to accompany them to Emma's room, his hand resting lightly on Katherine's back as they tucked their daughter into her small bed. They stood for a moment, watching her peaceful slumber before quietly returning to the main room. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Katherine remarked as they settled by the fire again. "Sometimes it feels like we've always been here, like this." Adam pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And sometimes I wake up wondering if it's all a dream, if I'll open my eyes and find myself back on the trail, alone." Katherine turned in his arms, meeting his gaze. Not a dream, and never alone again. Outside, snow began to fall once more, drifting past the windows like silent blessings. Inside, the fire crackled, casting its warm glow over the man who had promised to bring a mother and child home, and had instead found his own home in their love. Spring brought new life to the Mitchell ranch. Green shoots pushed through the soil in Katherine's expanded garden. Calves wobbled alongside their mothers in the pasture. And within the house, another miracle was unfolding. "Are you certain?" Adam asked, his voice hushed with wonder when Katherine shared her news one evening. She nodded, taking his hand and placing it over her still flat stomach. "The doctor in town confirmed it yesterday. By winter, Emma will have a little brother or sister." Adam gathered her in his arms, overcome with emotion. This unexpected blessing, a child of their own to join the daughter of his heart, completed the circle of their family in a way he had never dared hope for. As summer bloomed across the valley, so did Katherine, her pregnancy bringing a new glow to her beauty. Emma, now nearly 2, patted her mother's growing belly with gentle fascination, practicing the word baby with determined concentration. Adam expanded the house, adding a nursery adjoining their bedroom and enlarging the kitchen to Katherine's specifications. The neighboring women organized a quilting bee, creating blankets for the coming child while sharing advice and stories with the expectant mother. When autumn painted the valley in russet and gold, Katherine gave birth to a son they named James Adam Mitchell, honoring both her late husband and the man who had become her true partner in life. Adam held his newborn son with trembling hands, marveling at the perfect tiny fingers and the dark hair that promised to match his own. "He's beautiful," he whispered, looking from the baby to his wife with eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you." Katherine smiled tiredly, reaching for his hand. "For what?" "For everything. For trusting me that day in White Ridge. For building this life with me." Adam's voice grew husky with emotion. "For making me a father twice over." As winter settled once more upon the land, the Mitchell family gathered by the hearth. Adam and Katherine, Emma now speaking in complete sentences and fascinated by her baby brother, and little James sleeping peacefully in his cradle. Outside, snow fell gently, covering their valley in pristine white, while inside, love warmed the home they had created together. Sometimes in the quiet evenings, after the children were asleep, Adam and Katherine would sit by the fire and remember the storm that had brought them together, the desperate hours when Outlaws took her baby, and a lone cowboy promised to bring them both back. What had begun as a rescue had transformed into something far greater. A love that had saved them both. A family forged in courage and commitment. A home built on the foundation of a promise kept. And as the years passed, their love only deepened, their family grew, and their ranch prospered, a testament to the truth that sometimes the greatest journeys begin in the darkest storms, and the most precious treasures are not gold, but the hearts we find along the way.